All right, today I am here with Megan Erickson, and I am so excited to talk to you about social media because you are someone who helps creators use social media to grow their business. So that is a great mission and exactly what we want to talk about today.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here too. It's one of my favorite topics.
Well, good, because I don't like, well, no, I'm okay. I used to talk about it more, then I kind of got over it. So I was like, I'm a little too cynical. So we need somebody that's a little bit more excited about it. So why don't you tell us how you kind of got started being a social media manager and doing all of this social media stuff and strategy for other people, how you like kind of the journey that got you here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started my career in public relations and advertising. And at the time when I first started, there was no social media. It was still Facebook. You still had to have a college email to get into it. So I was just on that cusp, like just a little bit older. So I'm a grandma millennial, I guess. But so then I got to the point where it made sense. I was telling all my clients, we got to get on social media. This makes sense. At that point in time, like 10 years ago, that's unprofessional. Why would we do that? So at some point, once I had 2 kids, I couldn't imagine getting 2 out of the house at one time. So we decided I was going to transition to home, and I just started taking on clients. And at the time, what they needed was either blogging or they needed someone to help them with their social media. And this is kind of when blogging was big. Remember then?
I do. I had a big blog, a bunch of blogs. Yes. That's what I did all day long.
Yeah. So it was new for companies to get that. They didn't even really have their heads around cranking out consistent content. So that was where I started helping companies do that. And then it transitioned as social media got larger into that. So I have just been fortunate enough to be there as it's happening, learn as I go, and you're never really an expert because it constantly changes all the time. But since I'm in it all the time, I feel like I have some really good job security.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people, if you're listening and you haven't been keeping up and you're just diving in, that doesn't mean you can't learn things. In fact, sometimes it's more helpful because I have been around. I was in grad school when Facebook started. So I had the college email and it was the only way I knew when anyone was going to the bar. So I had to join Facebook and I was like, what is this? Because I liked MySpace because I was on MySpace. Mm-hmm. And I was on Twitter very, very early. And I think my first tweet was something like, well, this is sort of like Facebook, but more irritating. Like, I think that was my very first tweet. And I was on Instagram really early. And so I should have, done more with those things. But like, sometimes you're like, when you're a grandpa of the social media, you're like, why is this changing? And you get more irritated by some of the changes and a little more cynical, like I tend to be. So there's both ways are good. If you're just getting started, don't think you have to be grandmas like us. And for the social media, totally can work. And sometimes it's helpful because you don't have that memory of the good old days when Facebook, do you remember when your status was like, Kirsten is, and you had to, and it used to irritate the heck out of me when people would like pretend like the is wasn't there. And it was like, Kirsten is got a pizza today. And I was like, that doesn't grammatically make sense. So anyway, I'm glad that's gone.
I know. I felt the same way. And now sometimes, how Facebook shows you memories, I'll get memories that make no sense because I was assuming Megan would be on there forever,
That's right. Oh my gosh. It's so weird. So either way, starting now, or if you're a grandma like us, then it's fine. So you're working a lot, you work with a lot of different clients, but I know because you work with Hope Writers, which a lot of probably the listeners and people watching have heard of, you've worked with authors and specifically with authors in social media. So I would love to know kind of your thoughts on the purpose of social media for authors.
Oh, this I feel like is a blessed time for writers to be doing what they're doing because never before in history have they been able to test out their material, their writing on a live audience before it's even published. This is, there's almost no excuse anymore for for your content not to be engaging for your audience, because you have literally 24/7 every day an opportunity to be testing it out, talking to your community, to your audience, to your target reader, and finding out what they like, what they dislike. Even both nonfiction and fiction alike have equal opportunity to do that. And readers are hungry for it. They want to, not only do they want to have to see what you're doing, like they love behind the scenes, they love to see where you write and how you just do your work and develop your characters, but they also love when they have a hand in creating that. So it's as simple as, what should I name my next character? He's in a rock band and has a little sister. I don't know, whatever it is. It's just I feel like such a gift to writers. So why wouldn't you want to be on social media interacting with those people all the time? Because before it was you published and you sent it out in the world. And unless you did a book tour, book signings constantly, you really didn't know how it was landing. So here it's just, it sharpens your skills. It guarantees to publishers too. Publishers want to see that it's not that they want a large platform. And again, like we mentioned, I'm in the Hope Writers community. I'm their social media manager. I've been with them for 3 years. So I have seen, they have weekly trainings, publisher after agent, after editor, everybody in the publishing world. They're not saying you need a huge platform and all these people, we want to make sure this is a bestseller as soon as we send it out there. What they're saying is they want to see that your content has been tested and that people like it and that you're working to build that community. So it doesn't have to be as intimidating, I think, as a lot of people feel it is. Yeah. But it's just a great way to make sure that you are the best writer that I know everybody wants to be.
That makes so much sense. And I love that you're talking about 2 C words, community and content. So to kind of go into the content a little deeper, what are some specific things that and you mentioned some, but what are some specific things that you're seeing or encouraging authors to do, fiction and nonfiction, in terms of, putting things out on social, but just kind of testing and playing with that content?
So for fiction writers, it is a little more challenging because it's a different thing. You can't exactly test out, like nonfiction, the thought leader space. You can't exactly like, does this resonate with you? That doesn't exactly go, here's a whole scene, you're not really doing that on social. So I think fiction writers have a little bit of a block in that regard. And I mentioned a few of the things that audiences love is, number one, seeing your process, what you're doing when you're writing. Do you sit at Panera every day? Give them a Panera update. How many people are online? Really, just so that they feel like they're a part of the process. And then, like I said, test out like, hey, this is a fiction author I really love. She shows you the inspirations for the scenes in the book. So like, this is my grandmother's garden. This is where this character sat and talked and had this, and it just makes your writing a little more richer and fuller. And that's why they're following on socials. They want more of what you have. Other things for fiction writers, I have seen this, and this is a monetization thing too. So you can make a little more money on the side.
Everybody take notes now. We talked about money.
Is dripping out short form stories. So they can either be in the format of, Facebook has a monetization vehicle now. Twitter just rolled out a monetization newsletter and lots of ways to do it. However, that they would pay to get either an email or an update every week to get the next chapter of the story. So I've seen it work really well. And especially if you already have a book series out that people know and love, and they're like, I want more of these characters. I want to know what they're, what happened 5 years later. It's a great opportunity for that, or even just new characters. Romance, it works really well in the romance segment because just little meet cutes or the first kiss and how they got there, that kind of thing. So that for fiction writers, I think there's lots of opportunity there, and they feel like blocked usually. But
yeah,
for nonfiction, this is where you really hone in on your target audience, your person, who they are, what they need, what are their pain points. That's really where you're driven in the nonfiction world, is someone has a problem and you're trying to solve it with your writing. At least that's what good selling books, that's not even the right grammar, but that's what bestsellers are doing, is they are solving a pain point. And it's so obvious from just seeing the cover of the book, like, yes, I need that. So it doesn't, and that just doesn't come easily. They just don't think of that in a vacuum and then the people are putting it off the shelves. They are testing and trying over and over and over again, and they're finding those pain points, the little nuggets, the things that really resonate well, and then they're power packing their books with those things, and then they become bestsellers. That's usually how it's working. So different types of content. You have your tips and tricks that work really well. You have your quotes, and any way that you can make yourself more accessible. In the marketing world, we call it know, like, and trust. They want to know you. They want to know who you are. They want to see your personality. This is where things like Reels and TikToks, which I'm sure we'll talk about, come in, where they just want to see you and know who you are and who they're buying into so that they can like you. And then that kind of relationship, even though it doesn't feel two-way, even though it's through a screen, they still really connect for you, and then they'll trust you with solving their problems.
That's really great. I do, I feel like when I was doing a lot more nonfiction content, it was so much easier to create social content because you were, it was a more natural outflow. Like I was doing a lot with email, and it was like, I could write 10,000 blog posts on email, but still have a whole book on email that doesn't touch on everything because there's just a big topic and it's all serving people. It's very easy. And fiction, I feel like we have to really turn that creativity on. We have it, but there is that mental block. So you got to get the mental block out of there. And something that I was noticing, and it kind of took me back. I used to be a youth leader working in a church with like junior hires and high schoolers. It was something that came very naturally to me to work with these small groups. And the very first time I went on like a junior high retreat, and I'd never met these girls, and I was older, but I was just as nervous as they were because I didn't know them. And they had their little, even though they're younger and you're not trying to be their peer, they had their little group and their little clique. And I was like, I'm not like on the inside of their little clique because I'm not their age, but I need to break in. And so I actually took, and I'm older, but I am not ABBA old, but I had an ABBA CD, and I was like, we're going to listen to this music and it's amazing. And by the end of the trip, they were all obsessed with ABBA, which I'm not sure if their parents loved or hated. Probably loved. I think their parents were definitely ABBA age. But they had this sort of weird, safe, no risk connection through music, right? And so that was something they associated with me. So whenever we hung out, they would ask for ABBA. They would talk about ABBA. They'd be like, oh, I heard it on a commercial. When we can hand out to people, and this isn't necessarily content, but just but it can be. Lucy Score, who's a romance author, I was reminded of that because I liked her Facebook page because I started seeing all the things she was posting, and I was just watching. She, there's Taco Tuesday. We all know about that, but she has made tacos like a big thing. And so she's constantly posting about tacos, and other people are posting to her about tacos. They send her gifts about tacos and things. Tacos are easy. It's a low risk, not like a high commitment. Like, what are your beliefs about marriage? It's nothing that's like, we got to go deep. It's a very easy connection point that people can make with you. And so, when we're, to kind of touch briefly on like this idea of branding and sort of your author profile, like we're presenting an edited version of ourselves, right? Like we're giving people, you know, and we all decide on those lines. Like some people listening might be uncomfortable with the idea of being too open. That's fine. Don't show your kids. Don't show more than like this bookshelf of your house. You can choose tacos. You can choose, you know, later when I was doing youth work, it was the X-Files. I watched the X-Files every day, and the kids knew that. And whenever there's anything X-Files going on, they would send it to me. I had all these posters and gifts and random things. If you're, you know, you edit what's, and I was really interested in that, but we're editing as authors what we put in front in social media. So you can pick a couple things that you actually do love that feel safe to you in terms of the distance you want, and make it easy for those people to connect with you in those ways. And your content, like that's a fun, you know, there's pieces, different kinds of content. There's your book content. There's fun content that's just about building that rapport. So fiction authors, take the block out and start thinking about ways that you can, you know, do that, that feels authentic to you, but is also a way to connect.
Yes. And to piggyback on that, I've heard the advice, and I think it's a really, really good, that if you're struggling with that, you're trying to figure out what is it, no more than 5, 3 to 5, I would say. Pick your categories that you talk about your writing, you talk about tacos, you talk about what you're reading, and you talk about, I don't know, pick what your hobby. Maybe I'm a dancer. Maybe that's your thing. So you talk about those topics and you just cycle through them. Like you promote, because we don't want to be promoting 24/7, because that's not what we do with friends. Social media is for being social, right? So we don't do that with friends, and we're not going to do that on social media. So maybe 1 out of every 3 to 5 is a promotional post about your writing, about your book, about whatever you have that you're selling at that point. And then the other 3 to 5 are tacos and dancing and, oh my gosh, they ran out of my favorite coffee at Panera. I can't sit here anymore. You know, whatever it is. And they will, like you were saying, you get to know it just like you do with your friends. Like we do that. We send memes when we're obsessed with Hamilton. So is it like, I have a whole Voxer thread of all Hamilton stuff right now. I have a whole Voxer thread of all Bridgerton stuff too. Yep. So it's what you do with friends, and think it that way. Like, don't make it weird.
Yes. And I think if you're, you know, we're all about making ourselves accessible to a degree. So you find those accessible points that are comfortable. There's an author who had a whole series, and in the series, the one character kept seeing hidden hearts everywhere. And that became kind of a theme. If you go into her group, her Facebook group, every day, at least one person in that group, and it's not a massive group. I mean, it's under 1,000. So it's big. Like that may sound really huge to you. It's not massive, like thousands. It's around 1,000. Somebody is posting a GIF, a meme, or something, or from their house. Like, look, I found a hidden heart. It's like just one, and that's actually from her book. Like tacos is really not from your book, but any kind of thing like that where, you know, where it makes an easy point of them being able to discuss with you, because sometimes people are scared, even though we've gotten now where we're that level of like authors used to be over here. You had to like get an address in the back of a book and it would go to their publisher and maybe would get to them. Now we're like tweets, and you could like live tweet and they tweet right back. So the access has changed a lot. But people still sometimes are scared. Like when I hit, like if they hit reply to my emails and I reply back, they're like, oh my gosh, like, yo, wait, you got my email. Like it's like, yeah, I'm a person. And, you know, and I don't have a PA doing that, you know, people might, but whatever it is, they don't always realize that they can have the access, and some have too much access. That's another talk for another time about the too much access.
No, but I like that idea of if you're not comfortable even with much personal stuff, maybe if you do historical fiction and you're like an expert in, I don't know, 18th century corsets, I don't know, maybe you're tweeting out facts about that, because if they're reading your novels, they're interested in that time in history and what you're talking about. It's interesting to them. So even just, yes, like facts about the random things that you geek out about, those people who are reading your books also geek out about that stuff and would love that. Like the extra research, like this didn't fit in the novel, I wanted to tell you guys about it. You know, that stuff's gold.
It is. And then when people think of that, so those readers, they see a corset article and they're going to send it to you, or they're going to post it in your Facebook group. They're going to tweet at you. So that's the fun thing, is when there are these associations people make, whether it's corsets or tacos or Bridgerton or whatever the thing is, that's even outside of your book, or it could be in your book, like that Hidden Hearts example. whatever it is, there's an association. And the more we can be on people's minds, like, I mean, not to be really, you know, we shouldn't be the top of people's minds, but kind of we want to be, right? Also, because we want them to be thinking about us and thinking about our books. And that's another way we get in there.
Yeah.
So thinking about kind of some of these ideas, where do you feel like, what specific platforms, let's get into some of those. What specific platforms do you feel like are working for authors right now or not working? Can they all work? What would you say to people looking for the platform that they should kind of focus on?
Well, the top 3 platforms, period, as in users, are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So if you start anywhere, start on one of those 3. Pinterest is more of a search engine than a connection vehicle. It's great. It's fantastic. But that's more for if you want to get people to your website, that type of thing. LinkedIn is more professional networks. That's great if you're looking for writing gigs. Yeah. Go there. But that's not for connecting with audiences. So for connecting with audiences, definitely one of those 3, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And pick your poison. Pick whichever one is more fun to you. If you are very intimidated by visuals, by pictures, by video, Twitter might be your jam, you know, and that's where really witty, short missives, if you will, are just great. It's fun. It could be really fun. Yes, there's a lot of opinions and they're free flowing on Twitter, but I guarantee you that you can find your people there. It's all about who you follow, and it might take you a little while to find your people there, as with any social media, but I think it's worth it. Facebook is kind of like the default because it was the first and it's the largest and it's the most accessible. The most people are there. So that's always a good one. But I would recommend that if you're on Facebook, have your own page. Do not try to promote your work from your profile. It is technically against their terms of use. So I would hate for you to get shut down because of that. It's simple enough to create a different page or even a group. Those are also lovely, as you were saying, a group for people who love your writing or your novels or particular character, what have you.
Yeah, quick, I'm going to touch on this really fast because this is one of my little soapboxes about that with Facebook. And I know someone who works at Facebook, and I did ask him about that because there's so many varying, like there are people who are like, I will not mention I'm an author on my Facebook profile. And profile is where you add friends, just to be clear. Page is where you get likes for people who are not sure. So on your profile, you shouldn't even mention anything because Facebook could shut you down. Then there are people, they're like, Facebook wants your life and what you're doing. This is what I'm doing. So we're going to mention it and everything in between. So just be aware. There are lots of varying thoughts on that. And Facebook does not make it clear. I've looked at their terms of service. They want it to not be about a business, but also our lives right now are a lot less compartmentalized than they used to be, especially with creative work. That's one thing. The second is a lot of authors will create a second personal profile as their author name. If you're a pen name, don't, because that is illegal and not illegal. You're not going to jail. You'll go to Facebook jail. Actually, Facebook will and has removed people completely from their platform for doing that. And so that is something you don't want. So you got to create a page. Yes, engagement's harder than it used to be, but that doesn't mean you go around their terms of service. You either become more engaging on your page or have a page for running ads and have a group and engage people in there. But those are my 2 things I just want to say. Yes. And quick question too about TikTok. So I'd love to talk just briefly on that. I don't know if I know you're doing a lot of Instagram reels, but I'm not on TikTok. So I'm not sure what you're doing there or what your thoughts are, but a lot of authors are now on TikTok and are saying, I'm selling books on TikTok. I'm connecting. I have 90,000 followers and I've been there a week. And it's like the sudden, it's like the gold rush right now. I feel like
it is. Yes.
So what are some things that I'm not researching it too much, but just kind of listening around a little bit. So what are your thoughts on TikTok for authors?
I think TikTok is great for authors. It is, though, if your audience is in a certain age range. There are people of all ages on TikTok, but the ones where I do know an author who had viral growth on there, and 2 of them actually. And they were very specific about what they were there for and who their audience was right away. So you knew, and it was very clear. So getting on there and being, I don't know, just doing the fun dance challenges, not going to do you a whole lot of good. However, the thing, the TikTok audience is, you like maxes out usually at 20, in their 20s. They're younger and then max out in their 20s. So if that's not your demo, then it might not be the place for you. However, like I said, there's people of all age ranges there. But the ones that I've seen that have done the best are those who are just willing to just have fun. And that's what it's about. It's about entertainment. TikToks are the combination of music and video and titles or graphics. They are like all the three things that are most engaging on social media all packed into one. And like I said, the authors that are doing well are doing things like impersonating their characters, like showing up as their characters, or talking about their, what do they call them? Their book boyfriends.
Yeah.
How like you fall in love with a character in a book. So they're like, I swear one author I saw is having her poor husband act like her character. So she's like writing about them and he's acting out the scene in the back.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's just some really fun things that you can do. They're also sharing their own obsessions with books, because if you're a writer, you're probably also a really big reader. So Bookstagram, as much as it is on Instagram, is also alive and well on TikTok. So Instagram is my personal favorite. So as you mentioned, I've done a lot of work in the Reels platform now that it moved over to Instagram, and it's taking over the platform pretty quickly. I know that they usually, what's the word? They prioritize new features, but this one just has been taking off incredibly. And there's like, when they apply for a copyright to something, then everybody, because it's public, everybody's like, oh, this is what they're doing now. So it's rumored that they are going to change stories to be vertical, like TikToks go, or Reels as well. So they might even be changing the platform to go around the Reels versus the other way. Yeah. Okay. We don't know yet. That's just speculation. But those, again, I just think they're fantastic for getting people getting to know you personally. Yes, it is super intimidating. I totally get that. I totally get that you might have chosen to be an author so you didn't have to be in the public eye and be in front of a camera. However, I think there's something that you can do for every personality that you might feel comfortable for. You don't necessarily have to show your face. I mean, there are so many other ways to feature your books and your writing or whatever you're doing without actually showing your face.
Yeah, I think there's so much, a lot of the platforms are so intimidating. Not just, we've talked about the creativity, right? That fiction authors specifically struggle with just content in general, but then on these platforms where you're like, I got to create a video with music. And I when Instagram Reels came out, I went and like going how into like, okay, I'm going to go do a tutorial. And Jasmine Starr had this great free tutorial. And I went through her whole thing, because I was like, I don't understand how to put words on, or how to, and how to make them appear at different times. And so I had to go through all these tutorials. It really didn't take that long. And then it, kind of becomes second nature, but it can be very intimidating. But there's ways around it. Instagram, if you don't like taking pretty pictures, and I will say that still visually Instagram, it does, like, we tend to like those things better, but like some authors are just going into Canva, you get a square image and you're putting quotes from your books or quotes from reviewers or pictures of your book. You could do that. I've seen authors, that's all their feed is. They are not there, which I will say there is something to, even if you're like, today we're doing an interview, I took a shower. I straightened my hair and I put on eyeliner. It's not yesterday's eyeliner. It's from today. I never wash off my eye makeup. So tomorrow we'll do smoky eye. That's how we roll. I'll do ponytail and smoky eye tomorrow, but today for this. But people don't always care about that, right? So they want to see the messy, some of my most liked pictures on Instagram are pictures that are just kind of ridiculous. Like it's a child climbing on my head or something that, and I, we got the smoky eye or the no eye, like we got the bags in the eyes. They want that real thing too. And so there is pretty, but you don't have to be a great photographer. You can create, and if you're like, well, I don't create graphics either, well then maybe Instagram's not your platform, but also it isn't hard to create that in Canva. My kids are doing Canvas, so I cannot ever say the wrong Canva, the image creator, or PicMonkey or any of those kinds. There's so many. There's apps on your phone where you can do it easily on your phone.
Yes.
There are ways for you to access it, but people also want access to you. So there's all kinds of content. You can create on Instagram really fast. Just to I want to circle back a little bit to Bookstagram, because this is something I've been playing with and having a lot of fun. But for authors, you're kind of coaching to use Instagram specifically. What are some of the things, like if they're trying to get started, like I saw the best post in an author group. They're like, I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to do this Bookstagram thing. The only people who are following me are middle-aged men who are trying to hit on me. Help. And I just laugh so hard, because we all have those, like the men that follow me and it's like a picture of their face and then like 10 pictures of flowers and rings. And I'm like, I think you're just here for something you're not getting. So what for those authors who are like terrified and just getting those kinds of followers, how are some ways we can kind of get started there and access this whole Bookstagram thing?
Yes. So you mentioned some great things. You do not have to take a picture ever to put on Instagram. However, I think those are the ones that you personally take, because nobody else has that photo. I'm not a big fan of stock images, but quote graphics, like you mentioned, perform so well on Instagram. And if you can get into Canva, like you said, or if you have a friend who's a designer, what have you, maybe your publisher's provided some of these things, I don't know, but that is a super easy way and very effective with the quote graphics, taking pictures of your book or where you are, beautiful nature scenes. I mean, we have lots of options, but I think the thing that people do not utilize that I'm a big fan of is hashtags. Because again, they seem intimidating. However, I get anywhere from 10 to 50% of my reach from hashtags. And it tells you that in the insights. And it's really, I don't do anything fancy. I don't do major research. I just look at the picture or the topic of that caption and type in the words that make the most sense to me. Like if somebody were looking for this, what would they be typing in? They're typing in in my case, social media marketing, hashtags, those types of things, and add them there and send it off. And because how hashtags work, they're kind of like, if you imagine a huge file drawers. Remember when we had those, like
I do, because
hard copies of things. Hashtags are the file folders. That's how they're organized digitally. So when you click on one, it shows you all the posts that are tagged with that word or phrase. And people you can follow on Instagram those hashtags. That's why they're very effective on Instagram, because you can follow them. So I follow hashtags of subjects and things that I'm interested in. And that's, again, how you can reach people that aren't following you. You need to, just like being at a party, if you're the one in the corner just sipping your drink and you don't meet anybody at that party, whose fault is that? You need to go out and talk to people to then gather a following. So using hashtags, interacting on the hashtags, I keep going back to historical fiction because it's one of my favorite topics.
That's fine. We can go there.
Favorite book writers, but like if you're not, so you can go to those hashtags for the things that you write about, historical fiction and corsets and what have you, and interact on those posts. And then that way people say, oh, she's contributing. And we're not being weird again. We're not being spammy. We're not like, go check out my stuff. No, we're just adding to the conversation. Like, oh, I really love that. But have you seen this? We're adding value. We're making friends. And then they will see, oh, hey, they'll click on your profile. Oh, you write about historical fiction? Awesome. And will follow you. And that's how you just, and it's gradual. Like if there's anything we've learned about 2020, it's viruses are bad, right? So viral growth is not good. It's not sustainable. They're usually not your people. I know lots of people that are just going for the shock factor and getting those viral posts. And as a business, which if you're a writer, you're a business. It's a business. As a business, we're looking for that slow and steady, sustainable growth, because building a community takes time, and it's okay. As long as it's growing, as long as you're not going backward, as long as people aren't leaving, as long as you're growing little by little, steady growth, you're doing good. You're doing well.
And you touched on something that I think is really important, which is sort of some of the bad behavior that can happen, right? And so like when I go into Instagram and look, and I have a notification and it's like one person liked they followed me and then liked 15 things. I'm like, so basically they went to like a free training on Instagram and it was like, here's how to grow, like somebody, follow somebody and then go like 15 of their things and comment on one, and then they'll follow you back and do that all day long. They have the right idea, right? If we want to grow, we need to interact. That feels as false and forced, maybe not as smarmy as the guy who's following me with the flowers and ring pictures, right? We know what they want. He wants to get it on, and we're not here for that. That person wants more followers on Instagram. It's very transparent. So if you're going to employ any of these growth strategies, or you go to one of those trainings that's talking about an exact number of things you need to do, take that idea and don't do it that way. But take the idea, right? We should be interacting, but we don't need to go follow 8 people, like 6 of their posts, comment on one. Like I've heard this kind of stuff, because anytime it comes down to a formula, you have something that feels false, and we don't want to be false, right? We want to find that. And the other thing so I'm already going ahead. I want to talk about mistakes people make. So that's a mistake, but here's another, and then I'm going to ask you about mistakes. But another thing I see authors doing all the time on different platforms is they're attracting the wrong audience. They're attracting authors, not readers, which is fine it is fine if you're someone like me who has a podcast for authors. Okay. It's fine if you need to network, which we all do. I think that, people who start out and they're like, I don't know what to do first and I have no money. I'm like, connect with other authors, legitimate relationships with other authors in your genre, so you can all lift each other up. And there's some people who are jerks and you just don't help them anymore and stay away, and that's fine. But you'll find the people and friends and those kinds of things. But if you're creating content, because I think that's sometimes the easiest thing, right? We're struggling as fiction authors specifically. I'm writing fiction. What do? I'm going to talk about my writing process. A few readers care. More writers care than readers, though, a lot of times, especially if that's all you talk about. You're not talking tacos. You're doing that, or you're going onto Instagram and you're just following other authors, right? You should be you can follow those authors and then go look and see who follows them, right? Or if you're finding someone, you're looking up like that Bookstagram hashtag and you're finding Bookstagrammers, don't just follow the authors that follow them. Look for the readers and look for that, kind of hack. What is that person who is doing a Bookstagram? What are the hashtags they're using? What is the kind of content they're creating? But if you're just connecting with other authors, thinking you're going to sell books, or if you're just creating content that serves other authors and not your readers, then you're really attracting that wrong audience. And I see people a lot of times accidentally building the wrong platform, and that, I had somebody today join a Facebook. I have too many Facebook groups, right? I think it's a problem. I think I admin at least 50 groups. And I have one that somebody joined. It's for authors, and it's networking, and it's like really clear, like the rules, like to join the group. This is for networking. It is not about promo. Someone joined 10 minutes later. Here's my new book link. And I was like, remove. And I put a little note, but if they do it again, they're out. Because that's how I run my groups, y'all. But that is wrong too, because we're not, 1, that's rude. 2, we're not the ideal audience. Now, a lot of us do read, but you want the readers, not the authors. Anyway, that's my little soapbox. What are some other mistakes? There's so many. I've covered a couple. What are some other mistakes you see authors, fiction and nonfiction, making on different social media platforms?
Taking themselves and their writing too seriously is a
Mm.
major one. Yes, you're a writer, but that does not mean that your captions need to be 3,000 words or more. I mean, social is short form. It
Mm.
is the shortest form if we think about it in writing terms. If you think about it in marketing terms, social media is at the top of a sales funnel, and it's a funnel for a reason, because at the top there's the most people, it's the widest, largest engagement, and then as you go farther down the funnel, you're getting more your people, more to like the heart of your message and who are your people. So at the top it's big and wide and you're talking about more things and more people, but then the people who follow you, meaning like from social to your website or your email list, and then maybe even eventually, hopefully, to purchase your books or join your community, whatever you have available, those are your people. So there we're not publishing long form things on social or using it as a blog. I think we need to have some kind of content generation vehicle that's outside of social that you're doing that on. If you want to blog, you don't have to blog. You don't have to blog at all, because I know you're doing enough writing and I don't want to put more on your plate because that's a whole nother thing to keep up. So, but don't use social as a blogging platform is what I'm trying to say. We want short and quick. You're trying, if you want them to go to your website, you're trying to tease them. That's like, it's a teaser. You're trying, and you guys you're writers. You're good at this. You need to be able to tease them so that they're like, I cannot do anything but click on this. You're like, you won't believe what this character did or what outfit this character went to the ball in. That was, I don't know, whatever it is, but like something, your audience well enough to know that I found the secret to this thing that's been bothering me. I mean, DIYers are so good at this, and like, this is how you get rid of, this is the secret 50 secret tips for using baking soda to get something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, they're really good at this, and it doesn't always in our brains translate to our writing, but that's what you're trying to do. If there's a link, if it's a platform where there's a link, you're trying to tease them to get them to click that link to go elsewhere. And then I also think there's the misconception, which we've also talked about, is that you're showing up to promote constantly. It's just, here's my book, here's my book, here's my book, here's my book. No, we are fully formed 3D human beings with all, I think we've already talked about that a lot, but we need to get to know you as people, and you are real people. We know that. We want to know what you're into, what you're nerding on about, and doing that online and feeling free to do that, because that's what will attract people to you and to your writing. Yeah, I think those are the most things. And just forgetting, I think too, using it more as like a bulletin board versus inviting conversation. Asking before you write that scene, asking, what's the first thing you do when you walk into the grocery store? Or what would you be attracted to if you, I don't know, if you were say like a interior designer and you're picking out fabrics, like, are you in it? Like, maybe you're like, I don't know, I need to do my research. Who's an interior designer? Tell me how you pick out your fabrics. I don't know, whatever your subject is or how that incorporates, use them as people want to give you their thoughts, their opinions. They want to interact with you. So give them opportunities to do that.
That's really great. I think, kind of jumping off that just really is a continuation that's underlying really what both mistakes kinds of that you and I have brought up is, I see a lot of authors who are new coming in and saying, okay, I wrote a book. How do I sell it on social media? And I'm like, well, you kind of don't. I mean, you do, but you don't. Like you were saying, there's that funnel. I sell very few books on social media. How do I know that? I track it. I sell books through my email list and ads. The end. Sometimes if I do a takeover or some kind of thing in a Facebook group, because I do track that, I will make a few sales here and there. I might see a tiny, tiny uptick. But that's not really what it's for. It's social. It's not for selling. And so if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have any Instagram followers, how am I going to sell books? Well, you don't really sell books very well on Instagram. You can. These are more organic ways, but that is not what those platforms are for. So I don't know if that's disappointing or relieving to you. They can help get the word out. They can help build your brand, but that is not, it is not a storefront, right? Correct. That is not, Amazon is a storefront. Okay. Facebook is not your storefront. Instagram is not your storefront. TikTok is not your storefront. Can you sell books in those places? Yes. Is that generally where most of your sales are going to happen? Maybe at first, because maybe you have no money for ads. Maybe you don't have an email list and those kinds of things. So build them. I always say build. That was last week's topic, build your email list.
Yes.
Because that is where like that narrow point, those are those people who really, really want to be there. And also, research has shown that's where sales happen, not on social. So anyway, that's freeing or concerning to you. Let it be freeing. You can absolutely sell. You can promote, but that is not going to be the primary place to make your sales. Full stop.
Absolutely.
To sum up, because we've talked for a while now, I think I kept you longer. I was not watching the clock. This has just been great. If authors, the other issue with, content creation is hard, but if time is really a big thing.
Yes.
If authors had 10 to 20 minutes a day to spend on social, what are some of the actions and things that you would recommend that they spend their time doing?
Yes. Well, I'm a huge proponent of content batching, meaning even if you had 10 to 20 minutes every day, but you wanted to take all that time and just spend 1 hour, 1 hour on Monday and decide what your 5 posts are going to be for that week. It could be 3 posts, whatever it is. Set yourself a schedule. I'm going to post on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sit down. You could even do a whole month's worth of posts sometimes. If you sat down for an afternoon, you could schedule out a whole month. And that's a thing, either on the platform natively, like you can do on Facebook or Instagram through Facebook. You can schedule out. I think a lot of people don't know that you can schedule things out ahead of time. So sit down, think about all the things you want to talk about and schedule it out. And then all you have to do is check it and interact. And that's 5-10 minutes a day, really. It's just to see, has anybody interacted? Who's talking about what? Check on a few hashtags or in a few groups or communities that you really like to interact with. And that's it. I mean, you really, really do not have to spend hours upon hours or even an hour a day on social media. It is very, I hope that is freeing to people to hear too.
That absolutely is. And I think, to kind of sum up the conversation, I feel like hopefully if we've kind of done our jobs and I haven't colored it with too much of my cynicism about different things, social media is fun. It doesn't have to be too serious. It is a place where you can let your creativity shine. It is a place to make connections. It is a place where you don't have to have a bazillion followers. Really quickly about that too, because we didn't talk about growth. And I didn't have questions on growth specifically because that's where everybody starts. And I think that's the wrong place to start. I just saw an ad for someone like selling to authors. I have 10,000 followers on Instagram and here's how you can too. And I went to her profile and yes, she had over 10,000 followers. Every single image she had about 10 engagements, if that, 10. Is her 10,000 person Instagram profile effective? No, in no way at all. No, it looks good. No, take a deeper look. No. So it should be freeing that you can create this creative content, that you can batch things, that you can create 5 things. Like if you're going to walk away with a couple action items from today, schedule times, whether it's daily or once a week or once a month, pick a few of your topics. Your topic can be tacos. Now we're going to see an uptick in tacos everywhere, which is fine. It's totally fine. We're going to have tacos over here. And, pick a platform that works for you and kind of learn that platform and make sure it's something you enjoy. And I think that is really freeing. And that's really why I wanted to have you specifically on, because I feel like you make it fun. So if you guys are not following Megan, I'm going to have links to everything in the show notes for this show where you can connect with Megan. Megan, tell us a little bit about your podcast and then tell us where you can I'll have the links, but just say it so we can come and find you and about your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. It's called Megan's Social Media Marketing Show. It is available on your favorite podcast app of choice. It also is on video on YouTube, but you can see all of that on my website at meganerickson.com. It's ERICSON, no K. And yeah, come follow me on Instagram at Megan Erickson. And if you are interested in learning about Reels, I have a 1-hour class, guys. It'll just take you an hour. You just watch it. And then I promise you, you'll come out of it knowing how to create Reels. I also, as we mentioned, Hope Writers, if you're looking for a writing community, a place that you can connect with other authors, both fiction and nonfiction, I did an hour training specifically about social media and writers with Hope Writers, and the link will be in the bio, but it's hopewriters.com/Megan.
Awesome. And I will say too, if you're thinking about, like, if you're using Instagram a lot, you're like, I got to learn Reels, I would absolutely recommend Megan. I haven't taken the class, but I have seen her Reels. And if it were something I were going to learn, that's the class that I would take, is yours, because I've seen you doing it and it's not just trendy. You aren't just pretending like you understand them, or that you have followers, or you're not going out and saying you have 10,000 followers, come and do this, and there's nothing going on. You are very active, very, very fun, and very engaging on yours. And I know that you make it simple. Like, you actually have free content on Instagram that shows simple things in there, which I love. So much fun.
Oh,
it's been great talking to you. And I really, I just appreciate your kind of philosophy on all of this, which is why you're like my first interview in like 2 years on the podcast.
I feel so honored. So honored.
It was great to have you. So thank you so much. And I will leave links, and you guys go find Megan, because I'm not going to talk much about social media anymore, and she is. So if for your social fix, you need to go to her and get all that on. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much.